God's economy, nothing is wasted.
Dr. Tony Evans says God's got a plan that will make use of everything you've gone through in life.
God can turn your yesterdays into better tomorrows.
This is The Alternative with Dr. Tony Evans, author, speaker, senior pastor of Oak Cliff Bible Fellowship in Dallas, Texas, and president of the Urban Alternative. It's easy to look back over our faults and failures and start feeling like we're too far gone for God to use. But today, Dr. Evans explains how the Lord can build a positive future from the broken pieces of your life. Let's turn to Jeremiah chapter 29 as he begins.
We all know to varying degrees the feeling of hopelessness. In fact, for many of us, we define hope as looking forward to something you know you're never going to get. Hopelessness is when you look out in front of you and you don't see any change. Hopelessness is where despair rules. And even if you have a good moment or a good day, you know it's not going to last. It's going to be like fireworks on the 4th of July. It'll brighten up the sky for a moment. But then darkness again, hopelessness. And for so many today, they are drowning in a sea of hopelessness surrounded by a land of emptiness. And they just don't see much of a tomorrow. I was on my way home and from a meeting, and I was talking to someone at the church, and I was told to not go the direction I was going because there was a man on Highway 20 who was getting ready to jump off the bridge, and all the traffic was blocked, so I needed to go another way. When you get to the point of jumping off the bridge, you are hopeless. Many of us would jump, it's just we're too scared to jump. Tired of living and scared of dying and living in this sea of hopelessness. You know hopelessness. It's where there's no light at the end of the tunnel. Hopelessness is where the weather reporter says there is no sunshine and we don't see any on the horizon. It is constantly living under the cloud. Every day is rainy, always with the threat of thunderstorms. Hopelessness is a dead end. There are no through streets when you're hopeless. Some have financial hopelessness, the thought I'll never be able to pay these bills, never be able to get out of this debt. Some have relational hopelessness, a sense that this unhappy situation that I am in can never be changed, can never be reversed. Some have career hopelessness, stuck in a day-to-day job that you absolutely despise, but given the market and given the environment, you see no place to go. There's this sense of hopelessness, being stuck where you are. There's locational hopelessness, that I've been in this apartment, I'm tired of apartment living, and I've wanted my own home, and I still haven't been able to work it out. And so there's that kind of hopelessness. Or perhaps you've been single for an extraordinary period of time, and there seems to be no one on the horizon. You're not even getting a date, and so hopelessness reigns. You can classify it wherever you want to, but there's enough hopelessness to go around. God's people, Israel, were feeling hopeless. Things weren't looking very well. Things were not very encouraging, and day after day, year after year, they had to face this reality of hopelessness. One reason they were hopeless is because they were under divine discipline. God was disciplining them for their sin. He says in verse 4 of chapter 29, thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, to all the exiles whom I have sent into exile. The reason he sent them into exile was because of their perpetual rebellion against him. So problem number one that led to their hopelessness was being under discipline. And it doesn't feel good when you're being spanked. So that was one problem. Second problem is they were a long way from home. Verse 4 says, sent you to Babylon from Jerusalem. Jerusalem was home. Now they're living in Babylon. Babylon is a foreign place with foreign beliefs and foreign God and an oppressive environment. In other words, it wasn't a happy place to live. So they're under discipline and they're exiled in a land that they despise, living in a location they don't want to be, and not being able to go back home. On top of that, their hopelessness was being reinforced by what God calls false prophets. In other words, they couldn't even get help from the church. The religion wasn't giving them what they thought they should have been receiving. So he says in verse 8, for thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, do not let your prophets who are in your midst and your diviners deceive you. And do not listen to the dreams which they dream, for they prophesy falsely to you in my name. I have not sent them, declares the Lord. Here I am in a hopeless situation, and I can't even go to church to get hope. Now, it wasn't that they weren't getting sermons. It wasn't that they weren't getting information. In fact, they were being told, I heard directly from God. They were hearing from diviners and dreamers who were giving out information that wasn't true. We know of one of them because at the end of chapter 28, he tells about Hananiah, and Hananiah was prophesying that your exile will be over shortly. God says, don't pay no attention to him. Don't pay attention to promises that your problem is going to be solved tomorrow. Because that's false hope. Because if you believe the promise, your problem is going to be over tomorrow, and your problem is not over tomorrow, they are making me look bad. Because I never told them that. People today go to church, and it's easy to stand up here and preach. Come to God and all your bills will be paid. Come to God, you'll get a new place to live. Come to God, you'll get a maid. Come to God, your marriage problems will be solved. Those are nice, easy sermons to preach. You can say that all day. I had a dream. It's not because those things don't happen. Don't get me wrong. But don't give people false guarantees. Because then they have false hope and then they get disappointed. So they're under discipline, they're in a foreign place, and religion is doing them no good. They're in a hopeless situation because they see no way out. They are stuck. You ever felt stuck? So anybody right now in any kind of scenario and you feel stuck? The rest of you lying. Trapped, just stuck. And they were discouraged. They were broke down. You get beat down, then you just get plumb right broke down. Because hopelessness just sucks the life out of you. This is a bad chapter in a bad book. It's sort of like having a bad year in a bad life. Okay? It's a bad chapter. Discipline, foreign environment, false religion. It's a bad chapter in a bad book. Because the book of Jeremiah doesn't have a lot of good news in it. However, if I could just take a moment and show you a great verse in a bad chapter located in a bad book. Jeremiah 29:11. Many of you have memorized it. For I know the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans for welfare and not for calamity, to give you a future and to give you a hope. Come on, let me read that again. I know the plans I have for you. Got to come close to you for this one. Saith the Lord. My Bible says it's a plan for well-being and not for calamity, to give you a future and to give you a hope. Now, what you got to know is this is a good verse in a bad chapter. So if my sermon today is finding you coming out of last year as a bad chapter, and last year is piggybacking on all them other years because it's a bad life, I got a good verse. Because Jeremiah 29:11 says, even if you're in a bad chapter that's part of a bad book, I have plans for you. And my plans for you are for your well-being and not for your calamity. And watch this, here's what I like about it. It has to do with your tomorrow, not your yesterdays. To give you a future and to give you a hope. This verse is designed to tell you that in spite of hopelessness, God can turn your yesterdays into better tomorrows. That everything that's led up to this point no longer has to define where you are going.
Well, there's some great news. God is even bigger than our failures. So what do we do about it? Well, Dr. Evans will come back to tell us in a moment when he continues this lesson from his series, Where is God When It Hurts? This 2-volume collection will help you discover godly ways to handle a crisis, why the Lord sometimes allows suffering, and how to trust God when you can't see where you're going. And for the next few days, we're offering all 6 CDs in Volume 1 of this set as our thank you gift when you help support Tony's ministry with a contribution of any size, large or small. Just visit tonyevans.org, make whatever donation God leads you to make, and request your copy of Where is God When It Hurts? Simple. Again, that's tonyevans.org. Or let a member of our resource team help you by calling us day or night at 1-800-800-3222. This special offer runs out next week, so don't wait. Again, dial 1-800-800-3222. Well, right now, let's get back to Dr. Evans and our message for today.
God is so good at what he does, he can take your yesterdays and use them to give you a better tomorrow. Jeremiah 29:11 says, I have a plan for you. You say, but I haven't seen the plan yet. But God is saying, but look at my track record. I have a track record that if you pay attention to my track record, you will know that I know how to coach your life. There have been many people before you who've been in the same hopeless situation as you, and if you check my track record, you'll see I have a plan for you, saith the Lord. He not only says he has a plan, he says, I know the plan. So So I'm not up here guessing because I'm God, knowing past, present, and future, although they're all right now. I know what I have in mind for you. Therefore, what you are going through that is causing you to be hopeless is included in the plan I have for you. It may have caught you by surprise, but it's not messing with me. I have a plan for you, and I know the plan, he says. And it has to do with your future. Regardless of what's happened to you yesterday, the plan has to do with your future. He says, where I'm taking you is not for calamity. It's for well-being, or he calls welfare, your well-being. In other words, where I'm taking you, you're going to be better off. But I needed to take you through to get you to. You needed some discipline. You needed to know what it feels like not to be home. Because I know now, when I send you back home, you ain't never leaving there again. So I needed to take you through in order to take you to. So the question now is, what do I do while I'm waiting for this plan? While I'm waiting to see it, to discover it, to experience it, to understand it, what do I do? And then, how do I discover it? Those are the two questions. I hope you at least want it. I hope you at least want to know what it is, but how do you discover it? And what do you do while you're waiting for it? Well, let me discuss, first of all, what you do while you're waiting for it. Let me read a few verses. He says in verse 5 these words: build houses and live in them, plant gardens and eat their produce, take wives and become fathers of sons and daughters, and take wives for your sons and you give your daughters to husbands, that they may bear sons and daughters and multiply there, do not decrease, and seek the welfare of the city where I have sent you into exile. Pray to the Lord on its behalf, for in its well-being you will have well-being. In other words, don't sit back and gripe about your situation. Don't spend all your time talking about woe is me. Don't spend all your time fussing, cussing, and complaining. Don't spend all your time blaming other folk for the bad situation you're in. Let me say a word about that before I go on, because a lot of times we blaming folk for the situation that we are in when God says, I have sent you into exile. In other words, God is using those folk causing your mess to put you in the position so he can show you his plan. So don't spend all your time blaming folk. He says, I have sent you into exile. And I may have used those situations to do it, but I have you there, and I have you there for my reason. So he says, seek the welfare of the city. Now, notice there's a word in verse 7 that's also in verse 11, and that's the word welfare or well-being. While you're waiting on the plan for your well-being, he says, seek the well-being of others. In other words, while you're waiting for your blessing, be a blessing. While you're waiting for your deliverance, be a deliverer. While you're waiting for your change to come, be part of somebody else's change. Don't get so self-absorbed. While you're waiting, use it as an opportunity to get outside of yourself and become a ministry to others while you're waiting on God to become a ministry to you. Don't go passive on me. Don't sit in the room and pull down your shades, turn off all the lights and think you're making progress in your private dark room, because you are not. While you are waiting to see me unfold my plan for you, you allow me to use you to be the unfolding of my plan for somebody else. In other words, it's more blessed to give than to receive. You know the fairy tale. Cinderella was in a hopeless situation. Her environment was hopeless. Her stepmother didn't treat her right. Her stepsisters didn't treat her right. She had to battle loneliness Because while they went out to party, she was left to stay home. And life was one big drudgery for Cinderella. Fairy godmother showed up and asked her a question. Would you like to go to the ball? And through a miracle, she was transformed into this magnificent creature. It was at the ball she met the prince, and they fell in love. But isn't life like this sometimes? Soon as you think you done found what you're looking for, the clock strikes midnight. Bing! And all of a sudden your dreams get dashed. Soon as it looked like God had a breakthrough for you, your dreams fall apart. Soon as it looks like, and all of a sudden she winds up back where she thought she was delivered from. So she had hope, lost hope, and now is back again with those same old evil people. That same old hard work, that same old loneliness, with one difference this time. After meeting the prince, being thrown back into that same situation, she's singing and dancing as she's sweeping. Because she remembering who she met at the ball. In other words, meeting him didn't change her situation, but it changed how she looked at her situation, because now she looked at her situation with him in mind. And as long as he was on her mind, she could sweep like she never swept before, clean like she never cleaned before, not because the work changed, but her mind changed. She met him, and he had a plan for her life, and he was going to do whatever it took to find her so she could experience the plan he had for her life. Before you became a Christian, you were under the tutelage of the evil stepmother with the evil stepsisters. You belonged to the devil and all of his minions. But one day the Holy Spirit came and met you and transformed you and introduced you to the Prince of Princes and the King of Kings. But now you find yourself in a hopeless situation and things are not going well. But what he wants you to know, that since you've met him, you can go through those circumstances with a smile. You can take care of your business even in a bad situation with a smile. Why? Because he's looking for you. He's got a plan for you. He's got a goal for you. And when that connection is made, you'll be saying, it was worth it. I'd do it all over again, because some things are worth the wait. God is up to something great.
Great encouragement today from Dr. Tony Evans as he wraps up this message from his current series, Where is God When It Hurts? This collection provides answers to your questions about loss, suffering, and healing, and helps you find hope when your circumstances make you feel like giving up. Don't forget, for the next few days, Volume 1 of this series is our thank you gift to those who can help us keep Tony's teaching on this station with a contribution of any amount. Details are waiting for you online at tonyevans.org, where you can sign up for his free weekly email devotional and browse our library of audio, video, and print resources, including a timely look at revival called Turning a Nation to God. That's tonyevans.org, or give us a call toll-free at 1-800-800-3222. When our circumstances turn sour, we can't wait for them to change. That's only natural. Tomorrow, Dr. Evans talks about an unnatural way to face a crisis and the benefits it brings to your relationship with the Lord. I hope you'll be with us. The Alternative with Dr. Tony Evans is brought to you by the Urban Alternative and is made possible by the generous contributions of listeners like you.